Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Our major stories tonight: the Bishop of Bafoussam, His Lordship Paul Konu, cautions authorities in Cameroon against exacerbating the existing political tensions ahead of October 12 presidential elections. He urges Electoral and the Constitutional Council to uphold justice without political interference, emphasizing the need for fairness. The bishop also highlights the suffering of the masses, calling for their concerns to be addressed. Away from that, a scathing World Bank report has laid bare the grim reality of poverty in Cameroon, revealing that a staggering 12.6 million people are forced to survive on less than 2,000 francs CFA a day, an amount considered as inadequate given the country's soaring cost of living. Those are top stories. The news in full in a jiffy. Once more, thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe Television to get yourself informed on what's happening in Cameroon and also across the world. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. Victims of the douche fire incident right here in the city of Douala remain in shock and struggle to cope after their goods were destroyed in the blaze on Wednesday. The fire ravaged 5 stores and 6 houses, resulting in material losses worth million francs CFA. Malaglory tells us more.
This is what is left of the 4-story building in the douche market, popularly known as Marché Chinois in the Douala 1 subdivision. The building was razed by fire on Wednesday, July 30th. Traders are trying to pick what they can. Their reaction is that of frustration, and the victims recount their ordeal. We can only feel bad for what happened. The fire started yesterday about 1 p.m. till this morning, as you can see, smoke.
Très délicat. Ils demandent à tout le monde de sortir parce qu'il y a le feu. Ils ont maintenant pris peur. Ils commencent maintenant à courir dans tous les sens. À cet instant, j'avais 2 choix. Aller dans mon bureau, prendre les choses qu'il y avait et vider les caisses. Ou bien mettre tout le monde dehors. J'ai choisi de mettre tous les clients dehors et m'assurer que tous mes employés soient à l'extérieur. Quand je redescends maintenant, je vais maintenant remonter pour chercher maintenant l'argent. Les pompiers et les policiers m'arrêtent que tu ne peux plus monter.
They accuse firefighters for arriving late, claiming that the delay allowed the fire to spread easily, thus causing enormous damage. My shop is just few minutes away from the firefighter's office, yet they arrive late with very little water. I tried warning them that the water is not enough, that they also need a ladder, but no one listened to me. While many accuse electric circuit to be the cause of the inferno, the president of the douche market says the origin is yet to be determined. He furthers that poor communication contributed to the spread of the fire. It is not certain what really happened, as everyone is still speculating, but we learned that there is poor electric connection in one of the Chinese shops. As assistance to victims, the administration says that the traders regain their shops. Most of these Chinese can't speak neither French nor English. I think that is one of the cause of the incident, since the traders could not communicate well between each other. The situation raises concern on the security of the affected businesses. However, there was no loss of human life, but significant material damage worth millions of francs CFA.
Away from Douala, a 25-year-old individual was arrested in Mezam Division for allegedly desecrating a grave in Awing in the northwest region and trafficking human bones. Reports indicate that he was offered 5 million francs CFA by an accomplice to provide human bones. Seri Chakucho explains to us the circumstances that led to his arrest.
25-year-old Mboata Folok Martez was arrested by elements of the 3rd District Police Station of Santa in the Mezam Division of the Northwest Region. He is accused of desecration of graves and trafficking of human remains.
We use professional tactics and will be able to track who Tafulok Mate will be 25 years old with the remains of a human being where they bury him for full quarter for a week.
According to reports, Martez was approached by a friend who offered him the chance to earn 5 million francs CFA by providing human remains.
When we arrived before I entered Santa, we kept it at the road in the forest. Then we went down to Santa. We saw that boy. And then the boy said that, okay, the man has already come onto his bike. And the thing is that it was money problem that caused that man to insist that we should come and sell it, because he said they'll give 5 million.
Martez, who is said to have committed similar acts in the past, is said to have accepted the proposal and desecrated the remains of a 20-year-old man in Awing village.
This is the second time, because the first time they took me, but in Boya. The one in Boya, we went together. We went together to give it, but the person gave the person 2 million. He gave the person across to enter Nigeria at the border.
The two individuals then allegedly attempted to sell the remains to a customer who turned out to be police commissioner who had them arrested.
We catch them with a corpse that was buried sometime about 20 months ago. And they tied it in a bag, carried it on a motorcycle. We succeeded to bring him here with the corpse. They knew exactly the grave that they went to violate in Awing. They are native from Awing, and this particular grave, this guy died sometime in 2023, October, and both of them were part of the people who buried this guy. And they knew the compound very well. They knew that the compound was deserted by the family, so they could go there and carry on their activity without being seen by anybody.
The body was taken to the morgue. This case raises great concern on the safety and respect for the dead in the region.
Now we talk economy. A recent World Bank report has exposed the harsh reality of poverty in Cameroon, revealing that a staggering 12.6 million people live on less than 2,000 francs per day, an amount considered as very menial considering the high cost of living. Femi Armstrong-Sanda read through that report and came up with this element.
The report from the World Bank notes that 23.3% of the population in Cameroon lives below the poverty line, with 4 out of 10 Cameroonians struggling to make ends meet. The situation is particularly disturbing in rural areas where poverty is more prevalent. However, urban poverty is also on the rise, with the number of poor urban dwellers more than doubling between 2014 and 2021. The report highlights significant regional disparities in poverty levels, with the Far-North region being the poorest region in Cameroon. This region, affected by Boko Haram activities, has a high prevalence of diarrhea and infant mortality. According to the report, the lack of access to clean water, sanitation and healthcare exacerbates the poverty crisis in this particular region. The rapid urbanization of Cameroon has also led to an increase in urban poverty. The report notes that 60% of the population in Cameroon now lives in urban areas, putting pressure on employment and services. The influx of rural migrants into cities has contributed to the rise in urban poverty, with many struggling to access basic services. The report attributes the persistence of poverty to weak economic growth, rapid population growth, and insufficient job creation. The country's economy has grown at a moderate pace, but this growth has not been inclusive, with many citizens left behind. The report's projections are even more disturbing, with some 125,937 more people expected to fall into extreme poverty by 2027. This will bring the total numbers of people living in extreme poverty to over 7 million in Cameroon. The report cites uncertainties surrounding international aid, trade, and the upcoming election as potential risks that could exacerbate the poverty crisis. The poverty crisis in Cameroon, conclusively, the report says, is a complex issue that requires a multifaceted approach. The government and international organizations, according to the report, must work together to address the root causes of poverty, including weak economic growth, lack of job opportunities, and regional disparities.
Still now we talk politics. The Bishop of Bafoussam has expressed grave concerns about tension in Cameroon ahead of the October 12 presidential election. He calls on government authorities and all other stakeholders to stop exacerbating the tensions. Babla Jonathan sought the thoughts of some civil society and political leaders on the issue, and now he reports.
Le peuple murmure, nous interrogeons.
His Lordship Paul Lonsikene of the Bafoussam Diocese of the Roman Catholic Church goes to war against unlawful and unorthodox pre-electoral practices threatening the transparency and credibility of the October 12 presidential election and the peace, stability and well-being of Cameroon. The religious leader points to the upheavals that could emanate from ills like electoral fraud, unlawful exclusion of some stakeholders from the presidential race, hate speech, tribalism, the use of military force to violate the right to free expression, opinion, political belonging, and above all, the right to choose the next president of the Republic and the choice of the people.
C'est la vérité, parce que c'est la réalité, parce que ce sont des faits.
Human rights defender Barrister Liz Nkom qualifies the bishop's statement as truth, reality and facts.
Elle traduit, n'est-ce pas, la vision de tous les Camerounais de bonne foi.
Political leader Cyril Sambaka adds that the bishop's statement reflects the thoughts of all Cameroonians of goodwill.
Ce pays ne peut pas se construire avec des exclusions.
He says exclusion should not be part of nation building.
Qu'on empêche Kamto d'aller vers le peuple.
And Barrister Alice questions why Professor Maurice Kamto is being unjustly excluded from the race to the Unity Palace.
C'est contraire aux lois.
It is against the laws, the constitution and all international laws signed and ratified by Cameroon.
Ratifié.
As pointed out by Bishop Paul Lonsikene, Barrister Alice Com and Cyril Sambaka emphasized on the point that Cameroonians should be allowed to freely choose their leader in a transparent and credible election.
In the same vein, all eyes and ears are on the Constitutional Council as the nation awaits its decision on the petitions of some of the 70 candidatures rejected by Elections Cameroon. Observers have urged the Supreme Electoral Institution not only to dispense fair and impartial justice, but also to ensure that the process and outcome are perceived as such by the public. Babila Jonathan takes us through some of the petitions brought before the Constitutional Council. His report.
Some of the 70 presidential aspirants whose files were rejected by Elections Cameroon (ELECAM) for reasons including the absence of basic identification documents like the birth certificate are now pressing for the Constitutional Council to overturn the decision of ELECAM. One of them, Bessie Bing, is asking the Constitutional Council to restore his candidature, though his file did not meet some of the requirements stipulated in the Electoral Code, such as the birth certificate, certificate of registration in the Electoral Register, and proof of payment of the caution of 30 million francs CFA to the State Treasury. Another one, Bertin Kisop, detained in the Yaoundé Central Prison, filed 3 petitions demanding the rehabilitation of his candidature, the rejection of President Paul Biya's candidature, and the requisition of all members of the Constitutional Council. The file of Bertin Kisop, rejected by ELECAM, also lacked a birth certificate. The petition of the Cameroon National Salvation Front has been brought before the Constitutional Council by a faction of the party asking the highest electoral institution to annul the candidature of Issa Chiruma Bakari. In a similar case, Christian Mulende wants the Constitutional Council to reject the file of a comrade of the progressive movement, Ile Zipang. Like Bertin Kisop, Bello Yaya, who brought his petition before the Constitutional Council 1 minute before the deadline, is against the candidature of President Paul Biya. Professor Maurice Kamto is also expecting the Constitutional Council to restore his candidature. The other petitions were filed by Professor Jean Baibek, Barrister Ntimban Bomo, Yebka Dieudonné, Balikan Court, and Abdurrahman Baba. Meanwhile, 28 petitions, including those of Celestin Jamen and Dindin Ferdinand alias Papillon, have been abandoned. Section 136 of the Electoral Code states that the decision of the Constitutional Council relating to election results and candidatures shall be final.
Babila Jonathan reporting there. Still in politics, political actors think that the meeting convened by the Ministry of External Relations with ambassadors in Cameroon is to water down the tensions in the country at the moment. In a recent outing, Le Jeune Bella Bella, Minister of External Relations, gave a rundown of what is happening in Cameroon at the moment and tells foreign representations to stay neutral. Annabella, staff lady, tells us more.
3 months to the presidential election in Cameroon, the Ministry of External Relations convenes foreign representatives in the country for what can be described as a crucial meeting. In a recent outing signed by Minister Le Jeune Bella Bella, the government, through the Minister of External Relations, gave a rundown of the state of affairs in Cameroon at the moment. Political actors Charles Fongang and Dr. Ngale David think the minister is trying to cleanse government's image.
I believe he wanted just in a way to soften their belief about what's going on in Cameroon.
Remember that the diaspora has been very active, and I'll say for the most part not really in favor of the government. If we look at it technically, I think most of our brothers out there do not really support the government as it is.
In the outing, Le Jeune Bella Bella explains the security situation in the northern regions of the country with Boko Haram, the Anglophone crisis, and what has been happening so far in the electoral process. Can the government be trying to prevent any unrest before or during the October 12th election?
A lot is going on in Cameroon now. We have seen members of government leaving, to contest President Biya. So I think there's a lot that's coming up, and it's imperative that we take measures to be sure that after October 12, we do not have either strikes or some uprisings.
The case of Professor Maurice Kamto, who has been sidelined in a list published by the Electoral Council, is also part of the Ministry of External Relations agenda.
At the international level, people believe that Elecam did not really, what he did was not really fair. I would like to quote one example. The names of all those who are competent to compete were out 3 days before the release of Elecam. And when the results of Elecam came out, you realize that the names in the ranking the public got 3 days before was the same. So those are just evidence that what Elecam did was not fair.
Le Jeune Bella Bella tells the ambassadors and the international community to stay neutral as Cameroon faces this important phase of its political history.
And that's it for this first part of the news. Cameroon Today comes up next. Conjuk village in the Camp Division holds historical significance as a site where former President Amadou Ahijo promoted national unity. However, despite its rich past, the village today lacks basic social amenities, including stable power supply. This has hindered young people's ability to pursue their dreams, forcing many to seek alternative opportunities. In this report, which will be coming up next, we will meet with Jules, Daniel, and Junior, 3 individuals from different walks of life, yet sharing similar stories of struggle and resilience. Smagic and Gabriel has the details.
It's 6 a.m. in Conjuk, and everyone is up to go about their day's activities. Same as Jules and his little family. After taking a little breakfast, their next stop is at their farmland. Jules was never a farmer, but a technician. But the lifestyle in Conjuk forced him to divert.
Moi, je suis un technicien, métier bois.
I'm a wood technician, but when I arrived in Conjuk, I became a farmer because of the difficulties that we encountered in the village. Imagine that a technician, you want to work to feed your family, but no power supply, and from time to time, you wait, hoping that the road will be repaired. All this transformed me immediately. From 6 a.m. to midday, no light. Reason, I became a farmer.
Pour pallier à cette difficulté, et on se rabat au champ.
Even as a farmer, Jules still faces difficulties.
Et là maintenant aussi au champ, on a la difficulté des produits.
While a farmer, we also have difficulties in getting insecticides and seedlings. They are very expensive because they put the blame on the poor road network.
Bon, bref, ça nous met dans des difficultés énormes. Pour joindre les deux bouts en Conjuk, c'est pas facile.
Inhabitants of Conjuk say the normal period for them to get power in their village is between 12 to 6 p.m. and after that period until the next day. Daniel is also facing the same problem, but unlike Jules, Daniel has decided to continue with his profession. We met Daniel when power just returned and is struggling to catch up before he goes off again. Today, power returned at midday and sometimes 1 or 4 p.m. We have problems with our customers because of this unstable power supply. We don't know which door to knock that will enable us to have stable power supply in Conjuk. I can't hit my chest to see that there exists a carpenter in Conjuk who has stayed away from a convocation that came from his customer because of late delivery. It's a normal thing for parts of the machine to get bad as a result of unstable electricity. Because of unstable power supply in Conjuk, we always have our engines destroyed, like mine here that gets bad always because of unstable power. Junior is a welder in Conjuk. He has opted to use generator, but again he faces the problem of getting fuel and always changing parts of his machine. We can start something and along the line fuel finishes or a part get bad. Before everything is done, things become difficult. Even to find spare parts is difficult. We have a problem in Conjuk, which is electricity. Welding prices have increased in the village because of unstable power supply and high prices of parts too. Fuel prices here also are expensive, particularly during rainy seasons. Jules, Daniel and Junior are different personalities but have a similar problem, which is that of backwardness. Conjuk is giving out but doesn't receive. It's not normal. Many think Conjuk has been sold, but the money hasn't been shared.
And that's how we saw it on tonight's edition of Cameroon Today. Talking Point comes up next. My guest tonight is a civil society actor. He's known as Song Derick. Good evening, Song Derick. It's a pleasure having Talking Point tonight.
Good evening to you and good evening to all the viewers of Equinoxe television. It's always a pleasure to be on Talking Point to talk about issues that affect the very core of this nation. I want to send special greetings to the population of Njinikam who will be watching this program.
Song Derick, what are your thoughts on the 35 pre-electoral litigations at the Constitutional Council, particularly the rejection of Professor Maurice Kamto's file due to alleged multiple candidatures, despite the Electoral Code not explicitly stating this as a grounds for rejection?
Well, Emma, I will tell you that the laws in this country, some of them are not very clear. For laws to be usable, the law must be clear, the law must be predictable, and the law must be binding. And that law should not be selectively implemented. Because if the law does not explicitly state that a candidate can be rejected based on multiple candidacy, and even if that was the law, what is happening, especially in in the case of Professor Maurice Kamto, looks like it is selective law implementation. It is not only Mani Dem that had double candidates. The CPDM had, Universe had. So we don't know whether this is a legal decision or it is a calculated exclusion. Because the process of a LECAM must inspire confidence. And we must make sure that the law is implemented to the latter, not a situation where selected and targeted people are being eliminated from the system. At the level of the civil society, we are not asking for any preferential treatment for any candidate. we are asking that Elecam's law should be consistent, they should be transparent, and they should be respected. Not situation where we have selected justice being meted on others.
Now, the office of the Manidem party in Douala has been heavily militarized alongside major junctions in Douala and Yaoundé for the publication of the list of presidential candidates that were recently retained. That's 13 in number. What do you make of this apparent intimidation as highlighted by the Bishop of Bafoussam, Paul Luntekunu?
Well, this is selective intimidation. When I read the document you sent as published by the bishop puts it clearly that does truth and justice need the force of arms to impose itself? Certainly not. When party offices are guided like criminal scenes or crime scenes and the city looks like a military barrack, we start questioning the process. We are no longer protecting the process. We are intimidating the people. And like the bishop said, we are building fear. If the candidate list is fair, why fear of public reaction if every selection was done without doubt? So I want to put it that when leaders choose boots and guns, it shows a deficit of legitimacy. It starts questioning their legitimacy. You cannot ask for peace while sending out fear. It is not done that way. We have still seen that same case. Recently, just this evening, we are told that Minister Issa Chiruma was told to come down from the plane on his way to Senegal. That is still intimidation. And I think the system is not helping us in any way, because I want to put it very clear. No military in the world, no matter how strong, is stronger than the people. None.
Given the bishop's concerns about manipulation and intimidation, do you believe Elecam and the Constitutional Council can operate fairly and without political pressure?
I'll tell you that Elecam was designed for independence, but where Elecam is acting, they are acting under political shadows. And the way they are functioning like prompted AI. They are prompted to act, not acting like an independent body. You know, when the electoral list is being hidden, when minors are registered on the electoral register, and when appeals are trashed or appeals are taken and we already know the outcomes, then we question the very process. The way Elecam is behaving, we are tempted to say that Elecam surely are not serving the population. They are serving some individuals, because the bishop's message is clear. It's asking Elecam to act with conscience and not allegiance. For what is happening with the system, it is like some candidate, or there's a particular person that they have targeted and they feel like it is necessary we put that person out of the track in order to win. We have also heard FNC of Issa Chiruma call on the Electoral Constitutional Council to be just with the treatment of the case of Maurice Kamto.
Now let's take this last question. What message would you love to convey to Cameroonians who seem disconnected from the electoral process, particularly those who believe their votes won't count?
You know, Cameroonians are as the law of force takes over the force of law, the people will continue to murmur. And what is happening with Cameroonians is a sign of frustration. The system is not trusted. The process is not transparent, and the process is not clear. Cameroonians are questioning themselves. Should we cast our votes in the ballot box? Will those votes count? Because we see a situation where people feel like you are going to play a game, the referee of the game is putting on the jersey of another team, meaning that the referee can score and it is counted against the opponent. But this is my invitation for Cameroonians. We don't need to hand over our future in silence. We need to rise. We need to speak. We need to take responsibility into our hands. We can't keep succumbing to fear when fear is already killing us. We need to rise up, take our future, take our hope, take our courage, because we've been silenced for too long. And in silence, we think we are doing ourselves a favor. We are no longer safe. The system is corrupt. The system is archaic. And it is time for us to get set, call on our leaders, especially the opposition, those who are genuine, to come together, to form a single front. Because in this time of October 2025, it's a very decisive year. And we feel like if the opposition don't come together as one, we are going to have the same script, the same actors, but the same ending.
The same ending. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation tonight.
Thank you very much for having me in Mafogwe, and thanks to the management of Equinoxe Television. They are doing a very great job. You know, Cameroonians don't need to be quiet anymore. They need to be conscious, because when the law is bent, when fear replaces fairness, we are doomed. So therefore, I call on all Cameroonians to get up, to stand up, and all together, let us question the status quo. We have a chance to make the change. And if we do not make that change in October 2025, we're going to have 7 more years of pain, of anguish, of poverty, corruption, and embezzlement.
That's it for tonight's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for always staying with us. Stay in the company of all the programs on the best of televisions in Cameroon. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye for now.